Hey, Larry from Real Hi-Fi Help. I want to talk about what is the most efficient part of the system to work on. Okay, so most people will go for the speaker, the amp, which is down there, amplifier. Then after that, they'll go for the DAC, and maybe they'll go for a speaker cable, and then the source, and then perhaps in the end, the power box, which I have at the bottom, and then maybe they'll look at some power cables. Maybe. That's how most people approach hi-fi, okay? And you're free to approach hi-fi in the way that you want to. I'm just saying that normal approach by taking speaker, amp, DAC, that priority is going to cost you so much money. And then we have people like OCD Mikey from OCD Hi-Fi Guy saying that the DAC is the heart of the system. Yes and no, okay? The DAC is probably part of, I don't know, I can't put a percentage of it, but it does play a meaningful part of the sound, okay? And you can fix a lot of problems with a system by doing the DAC properly, so you don't have to necessarily get as good a source and as good an amp. Okay, I get that, but we have to look at this from a financial standpoint, and that is that these three ways of doing sound: speaker, amp, and then DAC. It's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And these are compensational effects where people go for the biggest effect, the here and now stuff that looks good, the stuff that can be documented, the stuff that most people in the hi-fi industry believe in, okay? And it's super important. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying if you want to save money in the long run, you have to do what actually doesn't give a huge effect here and now, but you have to go down from the DAC towards the source. The source in my system is a CD player. Get a good CD player if you have a system based on CD sound. If your source is a streamer, go from like what's it called? I can't even remember what it's called now. A Blue Sound, a Blue Sound streamer to something like an Eversolo streamer, up towards an Audiolab 9000N streamer, Hi-Fi Rose top streamer. Once you get into that Audiolab 9000N top Hi-Fi Rose streamer, then you've got a decent, not good, but decent streamer, okay? Then hi-fi starts. But if you have something like a lowest class ever solo streamer, or like a Wim or whatever, PC, Mac, whatever, all of that stuff, all that is wrong with the music is going to be amplified through all of this other stuff. And sure, you can boost the sound a hell of a lot, 5, 10, 15 times, with the amp, with the DAC, with the speaker, but you're still fixing the sound on the surface. You're not structurally going in and dealing with the huge problems that exist in the sound. So my tip is fix the source as the main problem, and then instead of going this way towards the DAC, fix that so you have a decent source. I'm not talking about anything close to the best source, but like, at least if you're into streaming, Audiolab 9000N as a minimum, Hi-Fi Rose top model as a minimum, okay? I don't know, OCD Hi-Fi Guy, he probably has some kind of a playback design streamer, I think for $5,000 or $10,000, Have that as a minimum in your system. If you don't have that as a minimum, you don't really have anything to build sound on top of, It's not going to stack properly. So have that as a minimum, okay? Forget about the speakers. I know that there are a lot of interesting, good offer speakers, amps, DACs. I know. You can typically get a lot of discount on speakers and amps and all kinds of things. I know, it's appealing, it looks good. That is a lot more exciting to work on, I know. But restrain yourself. Work on the source. And then once you've got the source, focus on what nobody really focuses on, and that is getting a really good versatile power box. I know of Isolate Mini Sub Access, perhaps the bigger brother Substation, if you can afford it, or one of the bigger Power Grip boxes, or something like a Puritan 156. If you don't have the power, if you don't have one of these boxes, this level of power management, it could also be an AudioQuest Niagara 3000 model. If you don't have something around that level, at the power level and the source level, it is super difficult with whatever you choose of speaker, DAC, amp. It is super difficult building it so the structure is convincing and you're not just pumping up something that seems plasticky and sort of stretching that plastic sound, Get that thing fixed from the start, okay? And use power cables that are either 1.5 meter basic $1 power cables, okay? Use that and use a basic power bar and use something like an OI8 079 gold plug with and then have a gold plug OI8 in the wall. That is very, very basic, okay? Then you don't have to necessarily have a good power bar to start with. That's going to suffocate a lot of the noise while still sounding a lot more natural than normal, okay? And then have at least $1 power cables that are 1.5 meters long or 2 meters for a bit more of a forgiving sound. And then when you're upgrading power cords, go for something that is at least the lowest level in acoustic power cable, or the official something like AudioNote ISIS power cables. They cost like $200 and you have to make them yourself for like 2 meters a cable. Have that as a bare minimum, or something called grand activation something. You can find it in my blog, latest book, number 10. Those are like the 3 power cables that you should have as a bare minimum, so you can build sound on top of sound on top of sound. You can find a lot of other options that are close to that on the market, but typically they will cost a lot more. This is sort of the base that you can build sound on top of, okay? Once you've got that in order, you don't have to send me emails or other people that do consultations about what speaker you need, what amp you need, what DAC you need, because from this point on, a lot more gear on the market will be okay to work with. Suddenly, when you've got this under control, it's no longer a market where there's only 10% of the speakers on the market that will fit your taste, or amps or DACs. We're talking about something more like 35% of the speakers, the amps, the DACs. And that's a huge difference, going from 10% to 35% of what's on the market, which will be able to satisfy you, okay? And you will be able to go with stuff that doesn't cost as much in the speaker, amp, and DAC category of stuff, okay? So I'm telling you guys this because nobody is really saying this to people out there. And on top of all this madness, okay, if you can have a speaker cable that is just something like an AudioNote LX96 speaker cable with some OI8 gold plugs, all original, and you can probably get it through something like hificollective.co.uk, right? When you have all of this in place, what I just mentioned, that's sort of like the base on building any good system. And let me just say that just by adding that speaker cable that I told you about, it's not the best speaker cable in the world, but immediately you go from around 35% to 45% of gear on the market, where you can randomly pick whatever speaker, amp, DAC brand that you have. And of course, not to promote audio note again, but again, if you go for something like some form of original audio notes, DAC 2.1 signature DAC, again, you go from around 45% to 55% of stuff you can pick on the market that whatever brand, whatever model that they're selling will somehow work for you, okay? Nobody says these things in the hi-fi world. This could be a isolate mini sub axis. It could be some form of power grip box. I recommend the bigger ones. It could be even a Puritan thing. I'm not so much into Puritan. I don't think it's quite as good as the ones I just mentioned, but like this is what hi-fi is about. And later on, once you've got all these things into place, then we can nerd around with making your power so much more sophisticated, like I'm doing here, where I'm dividing the power between two boxes. And I possibly have two dedicated circuit breakers to divide power up with, so I offload stress on that box and that box. Then we can work with all kinds of other different things in hi-fi. But this is the stuff that matters, okay? So I hope that helps you guys, because this is probably one of the most important videos in hi-fi that the industry will never, ever tell you. What I just told you in this video is breaking through so many barriers in hi-fi and saving so much money so that whatever you do in hi-fi, somehow that works for you. And somehow you build some momentum and get success so you can get whatever gear you have to somehow work a hell of a lot better. So I hope that helps you guys. Have a nice day. Bye.